Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. I want to talk to you guys about a variety of different things today. We're just going to do it around a campfire because why not? Because we can. It's only minus 15 tonight, warmer than usual. Let me just throw another shrimp on the bobby. There we go. You guys want to know why most people don't prep? Why most people aren't preppers? Well, I think I figured it out. You see, most people are NPCs, non-playable characters, okay? Most people are automatons, for lack of better terms. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, if that's even possibly for me to not mean it disrespectfully. What I mean is most people really don't know that they're alive. I'm sure they maybe even question life once in a while in the sense of, why do I exist? You know, the whole phenomenology of it. Why am I here? You know, why is anything happening at all? I'm sure they have those moments. I got my beaver throw here, made for me by Fernand, the fur guy. So this is luxury out here. I got my coyote mitts, I got my beaver throw, I got my goose down jacket, and my coyote fur trim up top. So, hell, I'm good to go. And I got two of my dogs, my sentinels, out here keeping watch. So the reason why most people don't prep is because they don't know they're alive. They don't know they're alive in the sense that they don't know that they have a lot of basic needs that if there were some compromise of the grid and the infrastructure that knits this whole charade together, if that was compromised, they wouldn't have their needs met. And most people, I think, are just in denial of their true animal nature. And because they can't see that animal nature within themselves, they can't see it within other people. So they just presume that if things go bad, everybody is just going to get along, which of course, game theory and this thing called history tells us is not true. Indeed, there's going to be the coming together. There's going to be community amidst the chaos. But by and large, it's going to come down to the haves and the have-nots, as it does right now. It's going to come down to self-preservation. They kind of just go through life assuming that everything is going to be okay. And the reason why is because the majority of people out there are conformists. They're scared to think for themselves. The 0.01% of the world are the biggest preppers. They're the ones who trailblaze. They do their own thing. I'm talking about the entrepreneurs. I'm talking about the people who basically live by their own rules. They don't listen to what the news is telling them with respect to, you know, what their next business decision is going to be. They have independent analysts who study all that stuff, okay, who know what's going to happen before it actually happens. This would explain the whole market crash of 2020 when, you know, before it was officially a pandemic, even though we as preppers all knew because we were making videos about it months leading up to that, or at least in January of 2020. But the wealthy knew, okay, that's why they sold all their stocks. And then, of course, they knew before the masses did that the severity, the lethality was actually much less than what a lot of people were anticipating, and then the market bounced. Some people, like myself, we thought it was going to be a dead cat bounce, but big money knew what was going on. The most elite people on the planet, and I say elite not in a sense that I think that they're better, more advanced human beings, just in the sense of their share of the socioeconomic pie. The elite are the biggest preppers out there. The biggest preppers in the world are the governments, the militaries, the ones who dig so deep, deeper than any of us will ever know, with their deep underground military bunkers. The military-industrial complex is the ultimate preparedness complex, when you think about it, spending trillions of dollars on armaments which will possibly never be used and hopefully will never be used. This notion that the masses only reference what's on the news anchor, instead of referencing the guy who owns the news network. What is that guy doing? Well, that guy is prepping. They're all preppers. They all have contingency plans for when the proverbial shit hits the fan. You can be really intelligent, and for some reason, there's like some mental block which prevents you from grasping this very simple reality that I'm trying to lay out for people right now. It's very simple. We are all human beings, and we rely on technology in order to survive. Should that technology fail, then shit's going to hit the fan. It's as simple as that. The wealthy people know this. The biggest prepper on earth is the guy who has the highest net worth, the guy who's literally building a bunker on Mars, or at least has plans to, because he's worried about the earth going extinct. I mean, it does not get more prepper than that. So I just don't understand how the common person disregards what the elites with their private islands and their private security and their offshore accounts, everything about them is prepper to the core. And they all have bunkers too, by the way, as you guys heard on my interview with the owner of Atlas Survival Shelters, Ron. If you haven't seen that video, go check it out. They're all preppers. They all know at any moment it could go down, because it could. So here's the thing with most people nowadays, they suffer with a myopia. You see, the rich, the wealthy, they live in the future. That's why they're the ones who run the world, because they base all of their decisions on what things are going to be like 10 years from now. The only way to make those 10x investments if you know what's going to happen in 10 years. And so they have huge investment firms of analysts to analyze what's going to come next. Most people suffer from myopia, meaning that they're short-sighted. They only see what's right in front of them. And this is a classic move of the NPC, the non-playable character, is you only see what's right in front of you. You can't imagine anything outside of that unless you hear it on the news. If the news came out tomorrow and said everybody needs to start prepping, boy, would there be a rush. There would be a panic. There would be a mad scramble. Everybody would be talking about it around the water cooler. It would be trendy all of a sudden. And it would be this, there'd be TV shows about bug out bags and the whole 9 yards. It's going to happen at some point. It's going to become mainstream. I was listening to Sam Cedar recently, who's a left-wing political pundit. I listen to all ends of the spectrum because I want to get a feel for what the Overton window has at all times. And I was listening to him talk about preppers, and you could just see the look on their faces when they're trying to rationalize why prepping is stupid, still trying to view it as a hang-up of the right-wing militias and stuff like that. And I, of course, am not that. And a lot of people I know are not that. They're just using their heads. They're trying to think ahead like the wealthy do, and seeing that in the next 5 to 10 years, shit is probably going to hit the fan in a way which has never hit the fan before, and that there's a good chance that 2019 was quite possibly the peak of humanity. But I digress. Watching them trying to rationalize how prepping and preppers are crazy, well, seeing that they are themselves slowly coming to the realization that, hey, there's more liberal gun owners than ever before. People are moving off grid for a reason. People are prepping in secret. It's no secret anymore.
I guess I'm technically what you would consider a little bit of a prepper. I just bought 10 acres over in Tennessee, and I'm curious why we don't see very much of the whole prepper mentality on the left. And if you guys had any thoughts on that.
I'm going to cop to having a little bit of that. I have a feeling there's some of that. The idea that we have to be individually responsible for the failure of something that government and society should be providing for at this point. I think that's where there's a little bit of jam up. Okay, power's going to go out. Well, why is the power going out? Because we have not made an investment into the grid, and we do not have sustainable, energy. There's going to be food shortages. Why? Because we have monopolistic practices that have made our supply lines highly dependent on one. We've literally put all our eggs into one basket.
So this myopia that was once had is starting to loosen a little bit. People are starting to realize that you're on your own if the crap hits the fan. And, choose your disaster. And next week there's going to be another disaster. Who knows what's going to be next? Cyber war, who knows? Okay? We've talked about every possibility on this channel. And for that reason, you're seeing a lot more female preppers, as I talked about in a recent video. To me, that's a sign. The fact that a genre which was largely male-dominated for the longest time, women are now starting to take an interest in a major way. Like, it's grown exponentially for some reason. And that tells me that this is serious, because I do believe, and I'm not white knight romanticizing anything, I do believe that women have a slightly better intuition than men about certain things. And women are natural preppers, right? They have to be. That's how women survived. That's how the tribe survived for millions, well, hundreds of thousands of years. Building a nest in itself is a very preparedness-oriented thing. So the women are prepping, and what I got to say about these people who are flippant about the idea of self-preservation, that same ignorance, that same disregard for their own self-preservation, and that same presumptiveness about the government or somebody else taking care of you when the whole thing goes up in flames is going to be turned on its head. And these same people, that same carelessness that they demonstrated when they had a chance, when you have a chance right now to start planning for the future, like the wealthy do who are planning to go to Mars when the whole shit show goes up in flames. I mean, literally, they're going to go crazy. They are going to be the worst kind of person, because to be so careless, to not even recognize your own biological mortality and the necessities attached to that, and to disregard that entirely, and to live your life as if everything is always going to be fine, it's a fool's game. It's like those people who think that the stock market's going to go up forever. And I've said this before, I look at human population like the stock market. We're in store for a big correction. I'm not saying extinction, but we're in store for a major correction at some point. I don't know if this thing going around right now is in some way, shape, or form related to that, if it's setting the groundwork for that or what, or if it's just the impetus to all the other dominoes starting to collapse. But what I know for sure is that people who have that defensiveness, that defense mechanism where they try to downplay the importance of prepping because, well, I would never want to live in that world anyways. Sure. Just wait until the news anchor says it's time to panic, because that's who they've listened to their whole lives. Of course, when that person says things are getting bad out there, what do you think the reaction is going to be? They reference what other people are doing, and they're going to reference that people are starting to panic, and all of a sudden, guess who's going to start panicking? And I hope it never comes to this, okay? I don't want more human suffering. I really don't. I'm not a misanthrope. I want humanity to learn some lessons, and I think perhaps nature is going to give us some tough love in the next few decades, but I don't want us to go extinct. So no, I don't want shit to hit the fan, because I recognize how truly, truly horrifying that would be. Could you imagine not being able to sleep at night because you're worried about thieves, hooligans, thugs, marauders, taking your children, doing things to your family, stealing your stuff? Okay, you're worried about gangs going door to door. Could you imagine the horror of that? Living that lifestyle 24/7 while you're watching your food dwindle, you don't have running water, it's cold, you don't have heat. Could you imagine sitting by a fire like this every single night? Every time, I'm in nature and someone says, oh, look how beautiful this is. Like they get a vista of the desert and the mountain ranges or the forest, and they say, oh, look how beautiful that is. And I'm always thinking, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking, that is hell out there. This is hell. This is caveman hell. Bushcraft has been extremely romanticized. And I understand why, because there are people who acknowledge that they're NPCs and they want to get out of that, and that's why they watch the bushcraft videos, because it gives them an escape. It reminds them, it speaks to them on a very visceral, primitive level, because this is what we've done for hundreds of thousands of years. That's why sitting around a fire right now is so stimulating mentally. And just so you guys know, the reason why I'm drinking Tim Hortons is because I'm right outside the city. And this isn't firewood that I harvested from nature. It's firewood that I clipped from my cords of wood that I have delivered to my home every year, because you might as well indulge in civilization while it's here. I think there's a lot of people who there's something in their identity which views prepping as a problem, political or otherwise. They've politicized preparedness. And that's something I refuse to do, whether it's the right or the left. I refuse to politicize prepping. I just think that's stupid. It's just like, there's certain issues which don't need to be political issues. Like for me, the whole Second Amendment thing, that's not a political issue. There shouldn't be a party that has dominion over that talking point or that line of thinking. There shouldn't be. Yet there is, for some stupid reason. Prepping is not a right-wing thing or a left-wing thing. It's a survival thing. Since when is survival, only for leftists or people on the right? It's not. Everybody wants to survive. A lot of people get turned off of prepping because they worry that, I don't have a background in police or military. Therefore, how can I ever be a prepper, right? How can I be a prepper if I've never fought on the front lines or I've never served in any acute phase of a crisis? Well, the truth is you certainly don't need to, because when you think about it, if there was a societal collapse, the majority of your time is going to be spent in what's called the post-collapse environment. The collapse is quite possibly, going to be very quick relative to the aftermath. It's like if you think about a nuclear war, the bombs dropping and the fallout is going to be maybe a month of, pure chaos. And then after that, it's going to be less frequent. Security is going to be a factor, don't get me wrong. And those skills, particularly along the line of stress management and stress inoculation, are going to be absolutely essential. But in order to be a prepper, in order to be a survivalist, you don't have to have a background as a first responder or in some tactical badass occupation. You have to have luck that you make it out of the disaster, for starters. You have to have cunning. You have to have a will to survive. And indeed, you have to have an aptitude for various things, for various skills, we'll say, and trades. Now, that last one, however, is not a set in stone, because there's many ways to skin a cat. There's many ways to survive. There's many ways for people to be useful, and I would argue that there's a lot of people who just don't have their post-collapse aptitude picked yet. Like maybe right now you work in IT marketing or web development or something like that. And what good is that skill going to be after disaster strikes? Well, maybe in a past life, maybe if you were born in the 1800s, you would have a natural proclivity or proficiency in something which, was different than that, something which was more analog, okay, in one of the token trades, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, whatever. You guys know what I mean. Prepping is going to become a liberal thing soon. For those of you who like to play politics, just watch. In the next couple years, it's going to become very popular to prep, but it's going to be different. It's going to be different because the government's already realizing that there's a lot of people who are sensing that things are going to get bad. And remember, They're never going to tell you how bad things are if they're really bad, because they don't want you to panic. Okay, they understand that people listen to the news anchor and they don't listen to the people who are running the news networks. I mean, judge people by their actions. Look at what those people are doing. What are they doing? Well, they're basically accumulating as much wealth and power as possible. So when the shizzy does hit the fizzy, they're in a position to ride it out. That's what they're doing. They don't listen to... You think the owner of the news networks listens to the networks? Okay, no, they get their information from a variety of different sources that we're just simply not privy to. And I'm not talking like conspiracy or anything like that. Like, you can ride that spiral as deep as you want. The fact is, everybody on the planet is trying to self-preserve. Some people have more resources and have a tendency to use their frontal lobes, their neocortex, more than others, in the sense that they think further ahead. It's chess, right? So some people have the ability to forego matters of the flesh right now for the sake of the future. They have the ability to postpone gratification, delay gratification, and put their money into something that they know is going to grow. Whatever future there is, man, it's going to involve the Matrix. And it's so... I'm not sure if you guys have seen the new Matrix trailer yet, and the Unreal Engine game, Unreal Engine 5. It's close to real life. I mean, it's not, it's still one or two iterations. I think when we get to like Unreal 7, then it's going to be really impossible to distinguish. We're in kind of the uncanny valley, as they call it right now, with artificial intelligence. But 2 more iterations, and it's going to be indistinguishable. And by that time, everybody's going to be micromanaged into these megalopolises with your 10 by 10 by 10 cubicle domicile, a headset strapped permanently to your face, or Neuralink just, shoved up your new, what. That's how people are going to ride it out, and that's how people are going to cope with the new reality. But it's going to happen too fast, I believe. We're going to get the holodeck from Star Trek. That's what it's going to be, the holodeck. That's how people are going to try to cope with what's coming, because some people are just never going to get it. There could be disaster after disaster after disaster. There could be droughts, floods, record-breaking storms that continue to increase in their intensity and longevity. And people will just, they'll maybe think about it for a few days in the aftermath, and then they'll lose interest again. They'll go right back to watching the WWF or some other dumb shit like that. I cannot believe how many people are entertained by wrestling. Like, it's one of the most popular YouTube channels. I cannot believe these superhero movies. How many people, we're just like big children. So it's no wonder, why it's all going to hell. And it's going to take some real Mother Teresas to get us out of the predicaments that we're in. It's going to take some real benevolent dictators to get us out of this situation. Yeah. As much of a freedom lover as I am, at some point, decisions are going to have to be made for the collective, and nobody's going to trust the decision makers when that time finally comes. Hell, I'm interested in reading the comments on this video. I just want to wish you guys a happy holidays. Merry Christmas if you celebrate Christmas. If you don't, celebrate being alive for another day, okay? We're all in this together, guys. We're all in this experience. This corporeal, is that the word? Corporeal experience. We're all in this together. Even though it's game theory and it is a big competition for resources. It is, okay? But I've always thought of nature as, I'm going to get really philosophical on you now. And this is where I'm going to basically give away how much drugs I've done in my 20s. I've always thought that the earth, the whole goal of the earth loves human beings, okay? The earth wants human beings to succeed. The earth wants us to build spaceships to take the biomass and to metastasize to other planets. That's what I believe. I believe that, okay? I genuinely believe that life acts like a stepladder for itself. Like, you know how those ants form a bridge of themselves so the other ants can go across? I genuinely think that we as human beings, as much as we don't like being bricks in the wall and cogs in the wheel, there's a part of us unconsciously that's working, whether we like it or not, towards that end of sacrificing ourselves for the greater cause. And the greater cause, I've heard it said that Joe Rogan talks about this concept a lot, how we're just the bootloaders for AI. You know, how we're just the creators of AI. That's our whole purpose. That's our whole reason for our existence, is to create artificial intelligence, have the singularity, get a machine which can exponentially increase in its own intelligence by teaching itself exponentially every second until it gets total awareness of the entire universe and becomes God. That's one theory. But hey guys, we're all part of the universal mind, I do believe. So as much as I talk deeply about this stuff and as serious I am about prepping, there's a certain absurdity to life which is worth grinning at. And that's why it never gets me down. That's why I never get depressed about this kind of stuff, because like Bill Hicks says, it's just a ride. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay safe. Canadian Prepper out.